you could be mad at Democrats and Republicans equally, but somebody from one of those places is going to be the nominee.
Right.
So be involved and help pick the nominee.
Howdy, you're listening to the Think Brazos Podcast. We host conversations with locals, politicians, and policy experts to help families thrive in Brazos County, Texas. So when you're thinking about how to make your community better, just remember, think local, think Brazos.
This is the Think Brazos Podcast, sponsored by Habitat for Humanity, and we're really thankful to be joined by Representative John Raney, and actually in his office today. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
I'm happy to be here.
So
I'm ready to be home too.
Right. It's not that long left, right? Like 29th is the last day?
Next Monday will be the end.
Wow. And then how long of a break do you have?
We don't know. We expect to have a special session on vouchers and property tax. I don't know. We may get that across the board.
Yeah.
And there'll probably be several issues.
Okay, got it. So first of all, we just wanted to thank you for your support of 1704, which was a workforce / affordable housing bill that Habitat has been working on this session. Doesn't look like it's going to get across the line, but regardless, we really thank you for that, and hopefully we can partner again in the future.
Well, the only thing I can say is there's always next year. I think we Aggies know how that feels.
Right. That is very true, yeah. The next thing I wanted to talk about is what things are you still working on at this late stage in the session?
I've got a couple of IDD bills that are in the Senate that I think are probably dead. I had a workforce bill over there that's dead. It never got a hearing. Okay. I don't understand the situation. Those are all three really simple, good bills that help people.
Right.
And I don't understand why they're not getting through. Mm-hmm. I did get some pushback from a couple of the senators saying, hey, you guys seem to wait to the last minute to pass bills, and I now have 65 bills in my committee.
Okay.
And I don't think they understand how the House currently works. Mm-hmm. And it's worked this way ever since I've been here, probably a long time before, but we can't do anything by Constitution for the first 60 days.
Right.
And then we start having hearings, and then the hearings, we have to hear the bill, we have to have that, mm-hmm. Then we have to vote the bill out of committee. The committee, it then goes to the calendars committee, and that takes time, and then it finally gets to the floor. So, we're probably halfway through the session before we ever get a bill to the floor.
Wow.
And that's a problem, but it's what's going on always. It's not something new. So I think we just need to elect more House members to the Senate so they understand what we're doing.
So what about that idea, I think it was this session or last, where you were looking, you had a bill, I think, regarding that very issue of the 60 days.
I've done that twice.
Okay.
I didn't even get a hearing on the bill this time.
Okay.
And I had a number of, at one point I had 96 signatures as co-sponsors. And then some folks started asking people to get off the bill, that it was a bad bill, which it was a constitutional amendment. It's not a bad bill. It just changes the way we do things. And there are people here that don't want change. Okay. We need to make change. We need to make change in a lot of things.
Sure.
But, there's so much tradition. People don't want to come in early. They don't want to stay late. They don't want to start hearing those bills earlier. I don't understand why. Mm-hmm. There was another constitutional amendment that came over from the Senate that didn't do away with the 60-day rule, but it cut it down to a 30-day rule. I thought it was a good compromise.
Right.
I couldn't even get it heard. So I don't know what the powers that think about it. Undoubtedly, they don't like it.
Yeah. So I did want to ask you about affordable housing and some of the bills that were working their way through the legislature. I think the Texas Tribune back in maybe March did an article where they listed a lot of these bills, and they're across the board. Some of them are preemption, some of them are like the Habitat bill programs, that aren't preemption, that kind of thing. But a lot of them honestly were. It was saying things like the size of the lot that you can build on, things like that, making it statewide. Where are you at on the state versus local in affordable housing or any policy, and is there a balance?
I think there needs to be a balance, and I think that every locality has some differences. I'm not for one size fits all on many occasions. Elections, yeah, I am kind of. We need to make sure they all run the same everywhere.
Right.
But in things like this, I typically am going to go with local control. Matter of fact, last night we had a bill. I'm bad at remember those bill numbers, but it would allow people to build a mother-in-law room in the backyard.
Oh yeah.
And it was, which I don't particularly have a problem with.
Yeah, we don't.
But it was a statewide law that would preempt any local law, except if it were a deed restriction or something of that nature.
Right.
And so I voted against it, and it failed. We had a verification vote because it was real close, and in the end, some folks changed their vote, and it failed pretty miserably.
So do you think that that's the reason that it largely failed, is that local control issue, right?
That was the reason I voted against it.
Probably.
And again, it's a one size fits all. I think we do that too many times in education too. We have passed a bill that maybe, I'll just put it this way, seems like Houston seems to have more problems than anywhere else, okay? So we pass a law that maybe fixes or attempts to fix the Houston problem, but it causes problems everywhere else. But that's just not the way we need to do things.
So largely housing, in your opinion, housing and a lot of other things are definitely better solved at the local level.
I think so, and I think education problems are better solved at the local level.
Got it. Well, I appreciate it. Have you started thinking about next session and some things you'd like to accomplish, or do you do that later on?
We'll probably take a little rest and start working on it later. But yes, I continue to want to work on workforce areas. We've passed a really extensive community college finance and bill that also works on workforce pretty good. The only thing that I saw wrong with that bill was I wasn't quite convinced that it did enough to measure the progress.
I see.
But it's a good start.
Okay.
It's a good start. Workforce is going to always be an issue that I think is important. We need to think about not only training people that don't want to go to college in a field of work where they can make a good living, but we also need to be looking backward a little bit more. And I'm not the one that I need help on this because I'm not an educator.
Sure.
But I do know that we have folks that drop out of school 7th, 8th, and 9th grade.
Wow.
And those are the ones that need tremendous help in getting schooled up so they can at least do some sort of a job.
Right.
And if we don't, they're going to be the people that we've got to take care of all their life. And the idea, the old story about teach a guy to fish and That's kind of what we need to do. Teach them how to work.
Yeah.
I know it's hard to make a living working at a fast food place, okay?
Right.
But $15 an hour beats nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we need to be looking at work and help rather than if you're working, we don't get any help.
Right.
And that's just a long time thought of mine is, okay, I can remember back when I was a kid, there were people that worked in the stores and all they did was sweep and clean up. You can't find anybody to do that today.
Or afford a house.
or at your house, that's right.
Yeah.
But if that went along with a little help, or was a requirement for a little help,
I see.
then maybe we would have a better outcome.
So do you think that in this session we're going to, or the legislature is going to fix the electricity grid issue?
Well, they're working on it. Whether it's a fix or not, we'll find out. Okay. I think that we need some more power that we can just turn on, okay? But I'm not going to say forget the renewables.
Right.
Those are excellent thing to have around. I just think we need something that we could turn on immediately and have that extra power, particularly in late August or in February like we did 2 years ago. Okay. I hope we do that. I'm not on one of the committees that has worked on that legislation, but hopefully we'll pass some legislation that will help that.
Okay.
And we should be judged about whether we do or not, too.
I would agree. Last question that I have, if there was one thing that you would want your constituents to know, whether about the session or something that you want them to know or they need to know, what would that be?
I think that constituents need to know several things. Okay. First of all, they need to vote. And they need to vote in a primary. Primary elections are where the candidates are picked. Right. We have so many people that just vote in November and don't vote in a primary. You could be mad at Democrats and Republicans equally, but somebody from one of those places is going to be the nominee. Right. So be involved and help pick the nominee. The other thing I would say is don't be afraid to pick up the phone. And don't just call and yell and scream. Call and talk with a reasonable voice and let the elected officials, whether it be city or county or me or anyone else that's elected, know what you think. Unfortunately, it seems like politics runs on polls. Yeah. And a poll doesn't dig deep into it. I need to know what my friends and neighbors are thinking. And that's more important than running a political poll. What do you think about this particular? Right. You never get down into the nitty gritty. You just ask a few questions. Right. Maybe 20 or 30, but it will tell you what issues are important, but it doesn't tell you what the voters are really thinking, in my opinion. Right. And we need to know that, and we need to have people call and suggest legislation that needs to be done, like you guys do. But the one area that I would be maybe a little critical of, and I don't mean to be, maybe that's not the right word, but small businesses spend so much time working and trying to keep their little business going. I know, I've been in one all my life, and never take the time to view what is government doing to me or making it difficult for me to do business. That's people that need to be talking a lot, because there are more people employed by small business than there are by
Right.
the large businesses.
Right.
So they need to be talking and visiting with their legislators. I think it's very, very important for the small business people to do that.
Great. Well,
And I would tell you this, I think that even if the issue is the same for Walmart as it is for a small John Raney retailer, that's okay. But I'm going to listen to my independent retailers
Right.
faster than I'm going to listen to Walmart. And that's just because I know them.
yeah.
If they call me, I'm going to listen to them. I don't know anybody at Walmart. I don't know the single manager of a store. Not being critical of Walmart, just
Right.
don't know who runs the store. They don't
Not
participate
local.
in local things that I see. But I know that the small retailer that runs the cleaners,
Right.
I know him. I go in there, once a week, and if
Right.
he has something, I'll sure listen to him. So I think that's important.
Well, Representative Raney, I really appreciate you coming on our podcast. Is there anything else before we close?
No,
that you wanted to say?
I would just say this. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate the opportunity to serve people in Brazos County, Bryan and College Station. And it's been an honor for me, and I look forward to doing it some more.
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you.